Hey everybody, welcome back to the Son of Grace podcast, where every single week we do our very best to help you, our church family, dive deeper into community. I'm here with the legendary
Jen Clark. I don't know
And-
about legendary.
Not as legendary.
not as it's Jen. It's so good to have you here today.
You know, it's good to be here. I wasn't pressured at all.
That's a lie. She was. I pressured her into.
True Tony fashion.
It was more like a hard sell, but I'm excited because one of the things that you're helping lead is our communion service. And I'm wondering if you could kind of fill everybody in about that. I know people want to put it on their calendars, know what to bring, all the things.
Yes. So we have our Good Friday communion service coming up on Good Friday. What's the date of that? Do we know?
It is the 18th.
18th?
Yep. The
April
20th is
18th.
Easter. Yeah.
Yes. And it will be at 6:00 right here. And yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you guys there. If you want to bring something to help out with the dinner, we do the dinner, we do the foot washing. I believe it's A through L is, we'll have to get back to you on those details, but
We'll put obviously it's centervillegrace.org/next
Yeah.
steps. All the information's on there.
Yeah,
Yep.
but we would love for you to be a part of it. Come on out, and we're gonna have the prayer team leading some of it, and the elders will be leading some of it. So it's gonna be a great time. It's gonna be memorable.
If you've never been to a Centerville Grace communion service, it's a feast, right? And so we eat and we share the word, we worship, we partake, and it's very soft. And what I mean by that is, unlike what me basically peer pressuring Jen into being part of this podcast, if there's any part of the communion service you don't want to do that feels like it's too much,
No pressure.
no pressure, right? So if you don't want to do the foot washing, no pressure. If you don't want to go up for the bread or the cup, no pressure.
None.
If you don't want to be a part of the potluck and don't want to bring anything, no pressure, right? No pressure. But
We just want you to be there.
want you to be
come.
there. Want you to be there.
Yeah, it's gonna be a great time of worship too. So,
Does other things happen in the life of the church that we all need to know about?
Yeah, so I'm going to put a couple little plugs out there. The day this is released, we're going to have Holy Conversations, which is the art of what? How do you word that? It's your
Yeah, it's my event. Storytelling for your neighbors.
There it is, storytelling for your neighbors.
And since we're in a series on storytelling, this is really like an equipping thing. If you're a disciple maker, if you're in a disciple making relationship, these are all things that you can use in your toolbox to help spread the gospel, to build the kingdom, on earth as it is in heaven, as we say sometimes, and kind of lean into that idea.
Yeah, and that is tonight, Wednesday.
Wednesday
At
night,
what time?
6:30 to 8.
All right. Also on centervillegrace.org/next steps, but you do need to register that even if it's day up, so we know you're coming.
Yeah, we have a good sense. So if you don't get a chance to register and you still want to come, just come anyway. But it would be helpful.
Yeah, and one more quick plug for what's going on at the church on Wednesday, April 16th from 6 to 9 p.m. If you have a green thumb or if you're handy and you want something to be able to do with your families just as a really low-pressure serving opportunity, we're going to be bringing teams together here at the church. All you have to do is show up. We'll have tools. We'll have landscaping materials. And we're just looking for some help in really kind of beautifying the church for Easter to make sure it looks great for all the folks that are coming, plus all the visitors that we know are going to be coming on Easter. So we want to remulch all the flower beds, just make the church look really nice, bring up that curb appeal a little bit. And that's something that we do together as a church because it's a service opportunity for all of us. So bring out your kids, bring out your families, and just have a good night just serving the kingdom.
And the last thing that we should bring up is the retreats. We've got some major retreats coming up, men's retreat, women's retreat. This is our retreat season. So please, if you haven't signed up yet, especially for the men's retreat, go ahead and sign up immediately. Let's make sure that we get you signed up for that. We want to make sure that we've got enough spaces there to fill up our group. I can't think of it.
Our room reservations that we
Yes, thank you.
and just for some encouraging, I feel like coming from the men's side, I'll speak for the men. If you're looking for community and growth, that is where you're going to find it. It's sometimes just getting yourself to take that step. It may not seem like the most exciting or best way for you, but it's going to get you out of your comfort zone. And it's just a really great thing for you guys to do together, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And for the women's retreat that's coming up, I believe the signups just opened yesterday and there are a lot of slots still open. So don't miss your chance out on that.
Great. Well, this week we started a brand new sermon series all about the power of your story and testimony. And testimony is one of those words that in the life of the church, like if you grew up in the church, you may have baggage with. So I'm curious, Jen, let's start with you. When you think about the word testimony in your life, what feelings come to mind? What are some of like what was your first interaction with the word? How does it sit inside of you?
That's a good question. My first interaction with that word, or my first time really, I mean, I grew up in the church, so I'll start there. Dave mentioned that a little bit yesterday, and
What do you call it? Womb to tomb?
yeah, womb to tomb. And I definitely am considered in that's part of my story. However, I liked how he said, you make the decision later though, to make the Lord of your life. So that did come later. But to answer that question, we used to way back in the day have like testimony nights. I grew up in a church that we went to church Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, Wednesday nights, and we would have a time where people would share their testimonies. And so it was a very common word growing up. I don't think that I really, as a child, you don't have much of a testimony or a story yet. So, I didn't have that chance to share then. But yeah, I got to listen a lot to adults in my life growing up give their testimonies. And, I think it's great to share your testimony and put it out there and kind of give a voice to God's actions in your life. So yeah.
Dust, what about you? Same question.
Yeah, love-hate relationship with the word for probably similar reasons.
Yeah,
Right? So
it's
yeah.
complicated.
it is. So like growing up in the church, I gave my life to Christ when I was 7, was baptized also when I was 7, and never had a whole lot of a before and after story because it was really just all before, because that was one of my youngest memories anyway.
Sure.
I still remember it very clearly, but I don't have a whole lot of memories before that really stick out. So, when you hear people that have these really amazing kind of like turnaround stories where it's like, I went through something really hard and did all these terrible things, then I found the Lord, and then this is what my life looks like now. Like I kind of missed out on that because that early age. And the other really hard part is I made most of my mistakes in life after finding Jesus.
Right.
Because when you're
Yeah.
a kid, it's like you're still
Sure.
gonna make the mistakes in life. So that leads to just a lot of PTSD I kind of had to work through in my life and figured out, like, do I really know the Lord? How much do I know
Yeah.
the Lord? Why don't I have a before and after story that looks like that? So to me, it just has a lot of weight and baggage to it, but it's also beautiful because I love to hear people's stories of how they've come to faith, especially when they don't have a faith. So yeah, love, hate.
I would say this. So I grew up in a liturgical environment. We didn't use the word testimony ever. So like the idea of a testimony was like more law and order, less Jesus. And
Yeah.
so like the testimony of the witness Dave mentioned is powerful. I never really thought about it as an opportunity to talk about who Jesus was. So it wasn't until I got around more evangelical or mainline Protestantism where we really began to see it. And I will say this, in my faith growing up, we had something called a conversion experience. And the conversion experience, I actually like the term a little bit better because it signifies the change as the catalyst. So I was converted from where I was to who God is, you know what I mean? And that's that. The thing about a testimony is what you're really trying to testify is to that moment, what Jesus did. So I don't know that, like you said, it's complicated.
It's a little complicated.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
When you guys think about evangelism and witnessing, what is the importance of your story, not yours personally, but an individual story to telling someone about Jesus? Like why are we doing a sermon series about it? Your take, Dust.
Yeah. I mean, like, listen, I like stats, and I like to just know what's going on in the life of the church. So I was just reading a couple of days ago, one of the stats is that most churches, evangelism is on life support.
Yeah.
It's like 3 to 5%, I think, are the most current stats on churches.
Evangelism is probably one of the things that we talk about more than anything else as a staff team.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in this season, because I think there's always a tension there. We're a pretty, what I would consider to be a theologically adept church. And sometimes when you're really good in your theology, that doesn't always translate to being really good at being evangelistic. Now, I like to think both those things can obviously work together in concert. That's what it is to really find that rhythm of who Jesus calls us to be. But a lot of times it's really hard to go out there and evangelize to our neighbors when we get really deep into our own theology, because, we can almost overemphasize, well, the Holy Spirit will do that. I don't have a role to play in that. Or maybe I do all that and God's waiting for me to take action. But the reality is God partners with us. So what does that partnership look like? How much of that's on me? How much of that's on the Holy Spirit? And that's just a tension that we all have to manage. But I think that it's just responding to how God is speaking to you in the moment. So like when you're speaking to your neighbors, when I'm speaking to my neighbors, when's the right moment to really bring up those hard conversations? How much of a relationship I feel like we have to even have that conversation in the first place? Those are all things I wrestle with as I'm trying to get better at it, because I'm not particularly good at it.
JC, same question to you. How does your story kind of impact all that?
Well, I would first say, I think God lines people up in your life, and I think he puts you in positions where he gives you the opportunity to share your testimony. And the people in your life, whether it be a close friend, an acquaintance, a coworker, someone you run into at the store, there's always an opportunity to share. And there's something about sharing your personal story. Instead of making it impersonal, you make it personal. And I think you can reach more people that way. So there's an importance behind sharing what God has done in my own life, rather than maybe being super theological with it, but just sharing how you've personally encountered the Lord. There's just something that's more important there, and I think the people in your life would want to hear more of that than anything else. But
yeah, when you share your story, I think there's a relational equity that comes with it that says, like, man, we're in this moment, whether it's by chance or whether by intention, we're in this moment and you can hear from my heart. Whereas sometimes I've seen Christians, or I've just tried to explain the gospel without using my part of the story, and it feels almost detached.
Inauthentic.
And the last thing I think Jesus wants from us is a detached version of the gospel, right? So that attached version of the gospel. All right, so let me ask you guys both this, and Jen, you can go first on the answer. How do you get better at sharing your testimony?
I think the obvious answer is the more you do it, the better you get.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously that's the obvious answer, but like, if I'm honest, I probably shared my testimony
How many times?
4 times this year.
Yeah. I know. When Dave mentioned that yesterday, I was like, ooh, when is the last time I actually gave, someone my true testimony? And
I mean, you shared something on Facebook not too long ago that was a testimony to God's work in your life. That was pretty powerful.
Yeah, and I think that's one way to do it. But even so, like that wasn't an easy thing for me to do. I want to say that social media, it's an easy way to, share something, but putting yourself out there in any way, I guess, is always
a challenge.
A challenge, yeah. So I think there's always a way to do it, and it may be challenging, but you just get better at it because you're telling the truth, you're telling what God's done in your life. I don't know if it's about getting easier, but you just become a little more comfortable sharing what the Lord's done when you are the reason, you're going to help someone get to a better place. I think I don't know. I think the more you do it, that may be the obvious answer.
Yeah, sure. It's just reps.
It's just reps. I don't know.
Yeah. I think for me, it's about practicing vulnerability in general, because like being comfortable sharing my story or my testimony it's a side effect, or it's an outcome of vulnerability. And I'm not a particularly vulnerable person anyways. So it's really easy. Oh, well, that's a little too close for me. It's not too much now. It's a hard thing for me to do, to be vulnerable and to build a relationship to the point where I feel like I can be vulnerable. And I think that's what it takes to share something that's going to come from a place of authenticity. means that like there needs to be a vulnerability in the relationship already, or else it's going to come across as proselytizing. All right.
Yeah.
And that's always the risk that we take. I grew up in a tradition that was very much focused on evangelism as the be all end all of everything. So like it was not an abnormal thing to hear every Sunday morning, hey, how many people did you tell your story to this week? How many people did you tell your story to? And that's not a bad thing, but it really became very much a numbers game. So it's like, hey, if you want to get somewhere in the church, it's like, well, how many people? Give me your number. And it's like not about what is the relationship you have with these people, just how many people. So and and I wouldn't ever speak ill of it, but like, we also grew up in a tradition where it was pretty normal to leave like, the little tracks at the
Sure.
at the table at restaurants, but even worse, the ones that looked like money and
Oh,
money.
God.
That gave me a whole other realm of
Please
PTSD.
don't.
I know. It's like, can we just
If
do
you're
both?
listening, don't do
Don't do
that.
that.
Don't do that. Leave real money.
Yeah.
And also, maybe just don't be a jerk at the restaurant while you're there and then leave a track when you leave,
Yeah.
like make the life easier. So a lot of baggage on growing up in the church like that, especially with that tradition. So evangelism has tension for me anyways, because we were so about that growing up that it kind of turned me off from just doing that as an action, as an outcome. So now I'm trying to relearn, even in this phase of life, like what does it look like to reclaim that as a good practice, as a core practice that we should be doing in our lives, but in a healthy way that's built on relational equity.
Yeah, one of the things that Dave talked about towards the end of the sermon was this idea of a Mark 5:19 challenge where you share your testimony, a 90-second testimony. And I think that's one of the ways that we can get better at it, right? If you prepare before the opportunity. So I would say prepare, I would say pray, and then I would say practice. Because who doesn't love a little alliteration, right? Prepare, pray, practice. So prepare, write it down ahead of time, get really clear about what you want to say. Give yourself and we're going to do this tonight in the Holy Conversations. We're going to talk about a 2-minute version, a 5-minute version, and like a dinner version where it's you sit down for extended period of time. Maybe you have 30 minutes to kind of weave in and out of a story. So prepare that way, and then pray. If you really want to share your story, ask God for the opportunity to do it. Pray intentionally, pray with people in mind. Maybe there are some people in your life, and this has a lot to do with surrounding yourself with non-Christians too, right? We all have to be intentional about that. And then the last one is practice. Don't let the first time that you give the story be in front of the person that you've been praying about for a long time. If you need someone to practice with, you can email one of us or call us or take us out for coffee, and we'd love to hear your story and share it. This is a great place for life groups to practice too. Your life group can all get together, and anytime I start a new group, we always start with our testimony anyway. So it's good stuff.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, I think it is very helpful to write it out. So I would always start with that. And you don't have to make it so serious, but just start brainstorming and go back to the beginning and figure out what the middle is and figure out where you are now. And it's just super helpful to have it written and kind of work from that.
Yeah. And along with that, you don't have to be in a perfect spot to share your testimony. Like I think that's another place we kind of get
That's true.
stuck. It's like, well, I'm not going to share that until I feel like I'm the Christian that I'm really supposed to be.
Sure.
And the problem is you're never going to get there. So,
Right. Yeah, I always say that when it comes to preaching, at least, and sharing and those kind of things, like it's just it's better to be authentic and vulnerable than perfect and polished, right? Like it's and the other thing is I always recommend that you share through scars, not through wounds, right? So scars have an element of healing to it. Sometimes God may still be working on something in your life that's probably not the thing that you need to share. Right? Don't share mid wound. Share when it's scarred over. And the Lord will lead you in all of those things, I think.
Yeah, it's good advice.
Closing thoughts on the importance of story. You got any? It's okay if you don't.
I mean, I think that the first thing you can do if you're questioning whether or not you know how to do it or feel comfortable doing it is check out what's going on tonight here at the church. And that might put you in a better spot.
Yeah, and I'm just going to go back to practice. Like, find somebody to share with. At the very least, write it down for yourself. Well, that's one of the most helpful exercises I ever did was try to type out in long form what my testimony was, sentence by sentence. And that really helps catalyze it in your own mind so that you can share it in a much easier way because you're not trying to, think mid-sentence. Well, I guess when I was this age, well, what did God do? Oh, yeah, and then this happened. Just get good at sharing that story and just hit those main points because what you're really hoping for is that you're hoping that, the Holy Spirit responds in that person's heart, but then God uses your story to help be a catalyst for that. So again, it's how we partner with God. And sometimes our partnership with God is just us taking that simple step of obedience and I'm going to be willing to share. And however God decides to use that, then the pressure is not on me. The pressure is really on God. And that's the way it is. Right?
That's the way
It's
it
Holy
should be,
Spirit
right? Yeah.
that works, not us.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that, and I'll say this, that don't try to assign value to the story that God's given you. Just embrace it as God's story in your life, and let the value be on the person who's going to receive it. And so whether you're a womb to tomb, or you, like the gentleman in the gospel reading, maybe you had a huge transformational experience, whether you're on this side or this side, it doesn't matter. Share your story, because it's really God's story in you. And what an amazing testimony.
Yeah.
What an amazing testimony. All right, friends. Well, that's our podcast for today. As always, if you need anything from us, we're embarrassingly easy to find at centervillegrace.org. Jen, Dusty, Tony. As always, if you want to sign up for any of the ways to get connected, centervillegrace.org/next steps. More than anything, we hope this conversation helped you dive a little deeper into your story. And remember, no one walks alone.